So this morning I was given the task of speaking on friendships and relationships. Friendships and relationships. It's funny, a couple weeks ago, had an assignment, some of you remember that, may not. I was here, got to preach on self-control, something I know very little about. This morning I get to talk about friendship, and it would be nice if I had a friend or two. But I'm going to give it a whirl, and we'll see where things go. Not sure why those were the things that I ended up with, but actually next week is another self-control thing, so you guys must be struggling too. But anyway, just saying. But the friendship is what we want to think about today. We often talk about relationships in the church. Seminars, Sunday school classes, sermon series, conferences on relationships. I would guess that a lot of you have been to various seminars on marriage, or maybe even one of the kind of cool things now, the little marriage cruise, and maybe a conference or a class. You've read books on marriage, and you should. Those things are important. You maybe have even at a time in your life looked for resources about the whole parent and child relationship. You've maybe heard a sermon series on parenting or marriage, and those things are really important. They really are. Those relationships are key. They're just such an important part of all of our lives. And yet we seldom study the relationships which can really make or break us as people in the church, our friends. We really don't study friendship that often, right? If I were to, let me just do it. How many of you have read a book on marriage sometime in your life? We'll do this as a participation event, okay? So have you read a book on marriage? Yep, okay, so several. How about a book on parenting? How about a book on friends? Yeah, a couple of you. How about a book on obeying your parents? No, sorry, I don't know where that came from. But yeah, not so many of those either. But when you have friends to play with, or you have friends to go on vacation with, or you have friends to come over and share a meal, life is good. Some of our greatest sorrows in life also come from friends that hurt us, or when we seem to be on the outside looking in, or we feel awkward, and it's hard for us as adults to sometimes make friends, right? When you're a kid, the fact that I'm 6, you're 6, let's be friends, right? I'm 60, you're 60, that doesn't work as well. People look at you kind of weird, right? When you kind of show up and, hey, I'm 60, you're 60, let's be friends. Especially if it's like some guy's wife. They don't like that. And that's understandable. That's probably a little outside there. But almost anything bad can be made sweet with the presence of friends. And almost anything good can seem not as good when we don't have our friends around. In fact, if you were to look at the things that people like the most about churches, right? The things that, what satisfies people about their church. And it could be true in this church. I wouldn't doubt that it is. But it kind of goes across the board. How satisfied are you with your church? And I bet for most people, their level of satisfaction is really based on a couple different things, right? The first would be, and I don't even know how to say this correctly, but I'll just say it this way, the quality of Sunday morning worship experience. And secondly, do I have any friends? Right? If you have great friends, then you can even put up with a Sunday morning experience that's maybe not exactly what you're looking for a while, right? But it just seems that, that connection with friends is something that, even as Christian people, kind of pulls us even tighter together. And it just means a lot. Friendship's a wonderful gift when you have it, and it's increasingly hard to come by. If you think about even some of the most popular sitcoms on TV over the last few decades, and I'm not necessarily recommending you go out and watch these shows, but if you did, Seinfeld, Cheers, Friends, The Office, Big Bang Theory, what's the thing about all those shows that ties it together? They're all about groups of friends. Even all of those having very dysfunctional friendships, and that's part of why they're funny, but they're all about people in relationships. And it's harder and harder to find friends. Some of that may be tied to our mobility. We move to different places. We travel around. We've got business. We've got friends. We've got vacations. We're all over the place. And even the fact that family life requires more time, it seems now, than it ever did before. It's constant. All the activities that children have, almost every night of the week, there's something going on, even in the summers. And family takes a lot of time, and even technology can help us to connect, but it can also hurt sometimes. Technology is great at giving us a lot of acquaintances, but it's not really great at giving us real friends. You can have a lot of relationships, and I'm sure you do. I'm sure right now that you have people around you that are friends of yours, that are close. And you maybe have small groups, or you have people at work that you enjoy spending time with. You have people that you can wave hi and say hello to as you're walking through your neighborhood, and they wave back and say good morning or whatever the case. I mean, you even got to get the little two-finger wave going right as you're driving down a random road, because you don't want to be that guy who shows up to preach at a church 6 months later and somebody says, I waved at you the other day. It's like, yeah, it was like 6 months ago. But you didn't wave back, right? You maybe missed it. You caught it as you were turning your head. And so those things about friends are important. Excuse me. We all have acquaintances. In a book on friendship, this is a definition that someone gave. He said, acquaintance is someone you may see often, but there's never an obligation to see them again. An acquaintance is somebody that you may see often, but there's no obligation to see them again. You run into them at a conference, or you see them at work, but you don't feel an obligation to plan something with them. An acquaintance is somebody that you just run into, and you end up in the same places. And we all have families, obviously. Some far, some may be estranged, but at some point there are family connections, and we have to sort through those. But friendships feel optional. You're born into a family, but you choose your friends. C.S. Lewis says in his book, The Four Loves, that about friendship, he says it's the least natural of the loves, the least instructive and organic or necessary, which is perhaps maybe why Proverbs chapter 20, verse 6 says, many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful friend who can find? Many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful friend who can find? So what I want to focus on this morning in our time together is how to be a friend. You could focus on how to get friends, but I'd rather focus on how to be friends. And we'll see this again in just a moment, but sadly sometimes those who's most needy to get friends are often the people who are the least successful in pursuing those friendships. So if you're here this morning and you're thinking this is a painful sermon, I'm in this big church and I don't know anybody, yep, it's incumbent upon us as a church family to come up and to invite you and to welcome you, but you can only control what you can control. And so if you leave the sermon this morning thinking I'm just a needy, empty, leaky love tank waiting for people to come and befriend me, that's usually a recipe for making it hard to be your friend. And so leave from this message today thinking, what do I need to do? What can I do to be the sort of friend that God calls us to be? And again, as some of your moms and dads told you way back when, to have a friend, you got to be a friend, right? So I have three questions as you consider what sort of friend you are. Are you fake? Are you foul? Are you faithful? So, first of all, are you fake? One of the characteristics of a fake friend in Proverbs is that he or she uses people. The fake friend makes friends with people who give him things. He establishes relationships for personal gain. And in Proverbs, this is usually talking about money. Proverbs 19:4, wealth brings many new friends, but a poor man is deserted by his friend. Proverbs 14:20, the poor is disliked by his neighbor, but the rich has many friends. Proverbs 19:6 and 7, many seek the favor of a generous man, and everyone is a friend to a man who gives gifts. All a poor man's brothers hate him. How much more do his friends go from him? He pursues them with words, but he does not have them. I mean, we see in Proverbs that wealth attracts friends, or at least so-called friends, and it can also complicate friendships. We see oftentimes in Proverbs 6, for example, that we're warned against getting entangled in loans for friends or putting up things for surety and security for friends, because some of us know by experience that when you mix business and friendship, things can get messy. If you're successful or significant in some way, you can't help but wonder from time to time, what's the real reason that these people are being so nice to me? We might even be suspicious of our own motives, and sometimes we maybe ought to be. I remember a few years back reading a book about Billy Graham and his relationships with different presidents. He had over 50 years of being close to most of the presidents. And for lots of reasons, as Billy Graham became famous, they wanted a photo op with him, right? I mean, if nothing else, they wanted that picture they could stick somewhere in their office of, me and Billy Graham. We're good. That means I'm good with God. Everybody's happy, whatever, right? And some of them had, I think, a genuine spiritual interest. They valued his perspective. Some of them just did it because it was tradition. But what struck me as I read the book is that one of the reasons that presidents said over and over that they liked to have Billy Graham around is that Billy Graham didn't seem interested in getting anything from them. I mean, maybe because he was the only other person in the world who was more well-known than the president, that might have been a possibility, but they felt like he was somebody they could talk to who wasn't like everybody else in Washington who wanted to surround a president. You could give me something, or you could get me a job, or you can pull on the levers of power and give me access. And he was there for them. He was there for them. So make sure you love the person you love, and you don't just love what they can give you. Money is the example in Proverbs, but there are a lot of other ways to be a fake friend, other ways to use people, to use their notoriety, their popularity. It's a slippery, sticky business where everybody's supposed to be networking, and you have your so-called friends online, and you want to be linked in with everybody. Why are you being so nice to me? Why do you like me? Why are you trying to establish this relationship? Is it just so you could sometime maybe scratch my back so in the future I'll scratch yours? Or maybe I'll use my platform, or we can use each other's. Yeah, that's not real friendship. Now, it's not necessarily wrong in business to ask people to be a spokesperson or be a person to advertise things for you, but it's not friendship. It's not friendship. Perhaps they're close to people that you want to get close to, somebody that you can get access through them. Perhaps they can do you favors. Are you a fake friend? It's a good question to ask yourself. Are you a fake friend? Here's the second question. Are you a foul friend? So I'm admitting right up front, just to keep the little F thing going, foul was the word I used. Yeah, it's probably not the best one I've ever had, but so there you go. But a foul friend is somebody who's quick to criticize. Somebody's quick to criticize. I think there's a couple different people that have a hard time making friends. One, as I mentioned a minute ago, is the person who isn't so interested in being a friend. They're just very, very needy to have a friend. And maybe they're socially unaware. Maybe they don't ask questions. They don't reciprocate conversation. They're just there waiting for you to pour into them. It's a one-way street. I'm empty. I need your affirmation. I need your curiosity. Go for it. It's very hard to make friends that way. But the other sort of person who's hard to befriend is that very hypercritical person. They have an opinion on everything. They verbalize everything. They're a relentless barrage of negativity in your life. And of course, there's a time to speak openly. There's a time to be honest and candid. But oftentimes, it's not that necessary and not that helpful. Proverbs 11:12 says, "Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent." Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. A foul friend gets into conflict that could have been avoided. Proverbs 3:29 and 30. "Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he has done you no harm. Have you had this happen to you, or maybe you've done it to somebody else? You almost ruin a friendship because you're having a bad day, or because you were suspicious or jealous or too sensitive or maybe too insensitive. Something went wrong at work, and it wasn't a good day at home, and you're quick to snap and to assume the worst and not give the benefit of a doubt. You're a critical friend. Another foul friend is somebody who's just an annoying friend. It's not just a matter of personality or temperament. It's about being rude. Rude, annoying people often are not aware of or don't care about social customs or cultural norms. Again, two examples from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 27:14 says, "Whoever blesses his neighbor with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, will be counted as cursing." Right? And that's one of those things you kind of think about, I always think about for, some of those guys that, you get kind of walking out to bring the trash out in the morning and some neighbor hollers at you, and you're just like, man, I'm not ready. Whoever blesses his neighbor with a loud voice rising early will be counted as cursing. And all the sleepy parents in the room said amen. Listen, kids, brothers, sisters, you tease each other. That's what big brothers and big sisters do. I understand. But there's a way, whether you're a kid or an adult, there's a way to tease each other that actually can build a bond of laughter and joking and bringing people together. But then there's also a way to tease, which is simply not loving your neighbor as yourself. And it's not saying the kinds of things that you would want somebody to say to you. And the Bible calls that rude. And the Bible says that love is not rude. Here's the other example, Proverbs 25:17. "Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you." That's pretty strong. But here's the paradox, right? We actually want friends sort of like this, don't we? We want friends who feel like my house is your house and your house is my house. Come on over. I mean, we've had friends like that we've been very close to. They just come in, open the fridge. It's just like this is kind of their house. And that's fine. We like having friends. But the danger isn't that you have friends who are comfortable being around you, but it's simply a warning here in Proverbs against tactless presumption, against entitlement. No longer saying please or thank you or recognizing that they're a guest. Now, it may seem like all this is unimportant, but it really is a matter of biblical obedience, that we be not rude, that we love our neighbor as ourselves. Foul friends can be critical. Foul friends can be annoying. Sometimes foul friends are just plain liars. Proverbs 25:18. "A man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a war club or a sword or a sharp arrow." Proverbs 23:10. "Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the field of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you." And that's an example of a blatant liar, a deceiver. But a lot of times it's more subtle than that. It's not somebody just coming in and moving the boundary marker over, right, to steal your stuff. A lot of times it's more subtle. Proverbs 3, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it's in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, 'Go and come again tomorrow, I'll give it to you,' when you have it with you." In other words, a good friend is eager to meet the need of a neighbor or a friend, not pushing them away, just keeping them at arm's length. Yeah, I have it right now, but just come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you. I don't want to be bothered with your trouble. Foul friends don't keep their end of the bargain. They don't return favors. They don't give back the things that they borrowed. They're slow to help. They look for ways to avoid being put upon. They're always out of town when you have to move. They're always busy when you need a ride to the airport. You can't trust them to keep their word. And along the same lines, foul friends are careless with their words. Maybe you know this proverb, Proverbs 26:18 and 19. Maybe it's one that some of you need to hear. like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is in the air, who deceives his neighbor and says, I'm only joking. Right? You get the picture? There's a crazy guy in the street, and he's got a flaming arrow, right? He's just launching them all over the place. He's having a good time. It's just fun. He's trying not to hurt anybody. He's not here to start a war. He's not trying to kill anybody, but sure enough, you come walking up and you have a flaming arrow stuck in your back, and you say, bro, that hurts. Yeah, well, hey, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a joke for you. My back is on fire. I'm not the coolest guy. Just thought I'd make sure you all were aware of that, right? But sometimes I can be a little bit funny. And being funny often involves laughing at somebody else's expense, especially when you're a teenager. I was never really trying to hurt people, but I was sometimes. And that's a proverb that I needed to learn back in the day. Just throwing these words out and then realizing, like, oh, I'm only joking. Like, well, that's not real funny. Words can hurt after you launch them, no matter what your intentions in launching them might have been. So be careful. I mean, some people are too sensitive. Some people are offended by things they don't have any business being offended by. But this is thinking about you and what you can control and that sort of firebrands and arrows that you're launching into the sky without being mindful of how they might affect others. So are you a foul friend? Are you a fake friend? And then the third thing I want to think about with you is, are you a faithful friend? Are you a faithful friend? Proverbs sketches out the characteristics of a faithful friend. A faithful friend is there in times of trouble. Proverbs 27:10, do not forsake your friend and your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. Right? The idea is, when that person next to you is your friend, they're better than even getting to your family's house. Family's important. I get that. It's very important in the Bible, throughout the text of the Old Testament especially. Family is significant in the ancient world. And so for them to say, look, you're in trouble, it's better to have a neighbor and a friend right there than even a brother who's far away. Given how important family is, that's one of those proverbs that ought to hit hard. The thought seems to be, don't overlook your friends. They'll be there for you every bit as much as your family will. And that's what it means to be a real friend. And here's the blessing and the challenge that some of you have, because some of you have been a great blessing and you have a lot of family here. Maybe you grew up here, you got people that moved here, multi-generational church. I get that, right? But be mindful, there's people who show up here who don't have that. They don't have 100-year farms. They don't have places that family have been for all this time. So remember that maybe God is calling you to be one of those faithful friends to somebody who doesn't have family here, so that it's better for them to go to your house than it is to their brother who maybe lives 3 states away. Proverbs 17:17, familiar words probably. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Again, the idea is friends are tight. They're there when things get rough. Contacts in business are good. Networking can be valuable. Having acquaintances and well-wishers is nice. Racking up friends on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, that I suppose that's fine. Real friendship is proven in adversity. Proverbs 18:24 says this, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Who's going to visit you in the hospital? Who's going to drop everything to be with you if your spouse dies or if you're having marital conflict? I used to talk about them as 2 a.m. friends, not because we were coming in at 2 a.m. together, but because if I woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning and I had to have help right now, I could pick up that phone and they'd be on the other end of that line. And they'd say, what do you need? because otherwise you better not be calling me at 2 a.m. You better have a crisis that I can help you, because otherwise I'm going to slap you the next time I see you. But it's that idea, right? It's that idea that real friends are people who are going to drop everything. The opposite of a fake friend is a faithful friend. The fake friend is in it to win for himself, and he'll leave you when your life is messy. But the faithful friend says, your life is messy, I'm coming over. Put the coffee on. What is God up to in your suffering? Well, one thing that God may be doing in your suffering sometimes is to help you make some of your friendships stronger and sweeter. Have you ever considered that idea? I mean, maybe part of the reason you're in a rough patch is so you can learn who you can depend on, who you can turn to, who you can count on. He's doing all sorts of things, but maybe that's one of the blessings that he wants to give you in the midst of a difficult time or a relational difficulty with your kids or an illness or work, whatever it is. He maybe wants to give you the blessing of having true friends come around you to care for you, to weep for you, to pray for you, to laugh with you and to cry with you. A faithful friend knows how to handle conflict, doesn't hold grudges, keeping a long, detailed records of wrongs is like building a friendship with a weapon under your coat, right? It's concealed and carry. You're ready to pounce. You're ready to download the file in your mind that's marked ways you have hurt me. It's always there. Ways you've disappointed me. That's not how to make friends. And it's certainly not how to keep friends. The sort of sword dangling over your head. If your friend feels like, well, I know he could bring up a lot of garbage about me, I better be careful around him. That's not a faithful friend. Faithful friends don't seek revenge. They're always eager to forgive. Proverbs 24, verses 28 and 29. Be not a witness against your neighbor without cause. Do not deceive him with your lips. Do not say, I will do to him as he has done to me. I will pay back the man for what he has done. Proverbs 21:10. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no mercy in his eyes. A faithful friend is eager to let the past be the past. Yeah, I mean, we walk through it, we hear it out, but we don't dwell on it. A faithful friend is slow to speak of their faults to others. Proverbs 17:9. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. He who repeats a matter separates close friends. Isn't that the case? What can build up a friendship faster than when you hear maybe something secondhand and somebody, oh yeah, so-and-so was just talking about you the other day. They were saying what a great guy you are and how much they love being with you. I mean, that's such an encouragement to you, right? I mean, it's so nice to hear nice things said about you. That's just normal. But what can tear a friendship down faster than anything is when you hear something secondhand or thirdhand, how much somebody's been talking trash about you, right? She said this about you. He said that about you. Really? I thought that guy was my friend. What's that all about? Reminds us of a good rule. Speak to your friends, not around your friends. Speak to your friends. If you got beef, have beef, settle it, get it fixed. Speak to your friends, not around your friends. It's amazing how many people will talk to you when we have a personal conflict, but we never think that maybe we ought to talk to the person we have the conflict with. It's like getting on one of those merry-go-rounds in the playground that you can never quite get off of. You just keep spinning and spinning and talking to people and talking to people. You need to get off before you're sick and go to the person. Proverbs 25, verses 9 and 10. Argue your case with your neighbor himself, and don't reveal another's secret, lest he who hears you bring shame upon you, and your ill repute have no end. Just read that one again. Argue your case with your neighbor himself, and don't reveal another's secret, lest he who hears you bring shame upon you, and your bad reputation have no end. Faithful friends forgive, and faithful friends help to make each other better. Proverbs 16:29, a man of violence entices his neighbor and leads him in a way that's not good. We've all had friends like that, haven't we? I know I have. That sort of friend that, boy, they're kind of fun to be around, but after you're with them, you just maybe feel a little bit like, oh, feel a little dirty. Feel like I need a little shower after hanging out with that guy or that gal. They're always pushing you to say things or to laugh at things or to watch things that you shouldn't. And you kind of feel, well, kind of fun, but I don't really feel like a better Christian. And then you have those friends that when you leave the party, when you come home, after the conversation, you feel a sense of just like refreshing, of clean, I feel like I'm better able to follow Jesus after spending time with them, after talking to her, talking to him. 1 Corinthians 15:33, just to give you a little break from the Proverbs stuff, says this: bad company corrupts good character. Word your parents have been telling you since you were a little kid. Bad company corrupts good character. So may your strongest relationships be with the people who help to lead you to Christ, not with those who seek to pull you away. This is especially true when you're young. We want relationships with non-Christians. I get that. How are they going to become Christians if they don't know a Christian? We want to be engaging non-Christians. And we can have great friendships with people who don't know the Lord, but especially when you're young and you're so impressionable, spend your time with people who draw you closer to Jesus, not with those who push you away. Let your deepest friendships be gospel friendships. Is that what your deepest friendships are about? I bet if we're honest, some of our deepest friendships are football friendships, or they're complaining friendships, or fishing friendships, or HGTV friendships. Are they gospel friendships? Proverbs 27:9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. You notice the proverb is comparing two precious things, oil and perfume, and the writer is saying those things, oil, perfume, they're not as precious as a wise friend. So go to your friends. Talk to them about the hardest things. Talk to them about sex and money, the things that we keep hidden. Get their advice before buying a house or taking a job or getting married. The best friends get smarter when they combine their IQs. Proverbs 27:17, and this is maybe a proverb you were waiting to hear. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Are you a sponge? Are you a sponge as a friend? Sponges as friends, you're not harming anybody. Nobody says, get that sponge away from me, I'm going to get cut. No, sponges don't cut people, but they don't help people. They're just a sponge. The image here in Proverbs is iron sharpening iron. Someone who has an iron tool, an implement that needs to be sharp, and a sponge isn't going to help you. Or you may be a sword. Well, a sword is good for some things, but if your only mode as a friend is to cut and to jab and to destroy, well, you're not going to be a lot of help. Proverbs says, don't be a sponge. Don't be a sword. Be a stone. Be a flinty rock on which the piece of iron can be hammered out. The sort of friend that makes others sharper, better, more effective, and more Christ-honoring. So don't be a fake friend. Don't be a foul friend. God's word throughout calls us to be faithful friends. People others can count on and turn to when life gets crazy and life gets hard. Friends are born for adversity, but there's a friend who's closer than a brother. And that friend is Christ, and he longs to be that friend for you today. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to think about these things for a few moments with your people. I pray that you'd help each of us to think about and to evaluate how we're friends with other people. Maybe we feel like we don't have a lot of friends. Maybe we feel like we'd like to have more. Help us to be the kind of friends that we long to have. Give us your wisdom. Continue to instruct us. Help us to not be fake. Certainly help us to not be foul. Father, may you help us to be faithful. As we pray these things in your name.